Hi everyone, William here. I'm just adjusting the phone setup. Sorry about that. This is the Grand Duke Dmitri 1917 Diary Series, and I would welcome any feedback you have about this new arrangement where I'm only doing 2 a week. I enjoy doing this a lot, so I was informed by an AI search that it's better to do 2 a week and not overload things. I have been doing 7, basically, but I think maybe I'll settle into 3. So feel free to let me know what you think of that. I don't want to, I don't want to make it impossible for people to keep up because it is a chronologically sensitive thing. Okay, what's our recap for last time? Well, we had memories of Nicholas II, evoked by this photograph that Dmitri saw in a journal called Illustration. I think it was in French because the caption, originally I thought it was English, illustration, but I think it was in French because the caption with the photo was in French. Anyway, the famous photo of Nicholas sitting on a tree stump with guards behind him. And yeah, that made Dmitri think about, he didn't really express worry. He noted how bad Nicholas looked in terms of it had aged him, and he just looked like he was in a horrible place. But what he did talk about, Dmitri that is, was the bad decision-making on Nicholas's part and how he himself and pretty much everybody else saw the writing on the wall, but Nicholas did not. Okay, so fair enough. And then he made some comments as well on the political situation in Russia with these different institutions, the Constituent Assembly, the coalition government, and the pre-parliament. Very important stuff going on. All right, so we're going back a bit in time, as was Dmitri's tendency. I say these are chronologically sensitive, and they are, but he himself was not chronologically sensitive. He went backwards in time and then would jump forward. So what we have today, the last one that we did was October 1st, and what we have today is the 26th of September, which was a Tuesday. This is one of the short day-to-day diary entries, quite short actually. Anyway, here we go. Lady Marling and I arranged a 3rd paper chase. I laid the trail. I managed to find a course over very rough terrain without rocks. It was a big success. The last few days at Gulhek, it became very cold at night and even during the day. Old Marling began to complain about being cold, and departure to town was set for Sunday, 1st October. Until then, we lived very quietly. No one came to dinner, and we didn't go anywhere. I personally dined on Thursday, the 28th of September, at the Wysotskis. The other guests were Romero, the Kadludovskis, I stumble on that name, never mind, the Swedes, and Eder. There I found out from Staroselsky that Tima had supposedly married Kerensky. We played bridge, then blank Baccarat, at which I blew 152 mons. Things just aren't working out for me at cards now, despite the fact that in the summer I always won. I went home with Eder. Naturally, the main topic of discussion was events in Russia. He reacts with great pain to all these matters. Okay. That's rather clumsily translated as far as being readable in English. Sorry about that. Okay, so on the subject of paper chases, well, you remember this that was going on, a couple of things. One being the paper chases that he's already talked about. They were actually introduced by him in Tehran, not in Tehran, in Persia, in Gulhek. And yeah, so he was, I think, proud of the fact that he found a particularly good course, as he says, over rough terrain. Yeah, I always laugh when he refers to old Marling, and he tends to do that. Anybody who's in their 50s, he calls old. And since I'm 59, yeah, it makes me laugh. He was 26, I think. So it's like, come on, that's not, you're not talking about elderly people here, but he always does use that. Anybody of a certain age, he calls old. The Wysotskis, I assume, were connected either to the Persian Cossack division or to the Russian legation, but I haven't been able to find any information about them, though they will continue to be a part of the 1917 diaries. Romero, you know about the Spanish minister Katludovskis, were connected to the Russian legation. The Swedes, of course, part of the Swedish gendarmerie, and Etter, the Russian minister to Tehran. Staroselsky was the second in command in the Persian Cossack division. And so now we find out, Dmitri talked about Tima before, this woman of whom he was very, very fond and had poured out his soul to, according to him. And he mentioned the rumor that she had married Kerensky, but he didn't tell us where the rumor came from. Well, apparently it was something that Staroselsky had heard and told him. And it was a fairly widespread rumor. I mean, it wasn't something that Staroselsky uniquely would have heard about. Okay, so they play bridge, which, is kind of a shoulder shrug for Dmitri, kind of a meh, he's not that into bridge. But then they play Baccarat, and he loses 152 mon, which was the currency in Persia. So how much money is that? Well, in today's terms, in U.S. dollars, it would be more than $7,000. So that wasn't just like, losing a couple hundred on a card game. Fancy losing over 7,000 in one night when you're at somebody's house. You're not, at a casino. And so, wow, they were playing for high stakes if he lost that much. And then he mentions that he had always won during the summer. So we find out that he's been gambling all throughout the summer, and he's been doing well. And, now he says, things just aren't working out for me at cards now. Okay, well, maybe take the hint then, old boy, because this is going to end up just exploding, this problem of his with gambling. And he gambled a lot at the yacht club back before the revolution, but he could afford it. And now he really can't, and he won't be able to when he's in France and when he's in London, when he'll continue on this sort of disastrous trajectory. So that will be a theme that we'll be looking at. Okay, so Etter, I went home with Etter. By that, I think he means not that he went to the Russian legation, but that Etter took him home in Etter's car. And they had this discussion in the car of what was going on in Russia. And boy, I wish there was a transcript of that. That would be fantastic. He reacts with terrible pain to everything that's going on in Russia. Yeah, understandable. Dmitri in his diary, in prior diary entries, has as well. So it's not really a remarkable thing. Anyway, what do we have next time? Well, next time he's going to give a fascinating portrayal of the move from Gulhek to Tehran under fairly primitive conditions at that time. So I think something that he finds fascinating, and I do as well. And then he's going to talk about pressure from various quarters for him to leave the Marling household and leave the British legation. So do come back for that. And when will that be? Monday or Tuesday, probably Monday. And I'll see you then. Bye.